Hey, Beyond the Gates fans. We have got your early spoilers for the week of June 15th through the 19th, and honestly, the tornado aftermath alone is going to keep us busy for a while, because Fairmont Crest Country Club got absolutely demolished, and now Salem. Sorry, wrong show. Now the BTG world has to pick up all the pieces and figure out who made it through, who got hurt, who stepped up as a hero, and who showed their true colors when things got genuinely dangerous. Plus, Eva Thomas and Kat Richardson are doing some serious trauma bonding in the middle of all of this disaster, and Joey Armstrong is getting some well-deserved recognition for something he does during the chaos that nobody saw coming from him. It is Belinda from Soap Dirt. And before we dive into the week of June 15th, please click that subscribe button if you're not already following us. We are here every single day with the latest, and you absolutely do not want to fall behind on this one. Alright, as we always do on Early Edition Day, we wrap up what is still coming this week first, and then we get into all the good stuff headed our way next week. Let's get into it. So, starting with Thursday, June 12th, and what a Thursday this is shaping up to be. We are picking up directly from the end of Wednesday's episode where the tornado made a direct, devastating hit on the Fairmont Crest Country Club right in the middle of the fundraiser. The roof got partially taken out, glass went flying everywhere, people were screaming, and the situation is absolutely not over yet. There is more danger coming before anyone gets to breathe. And I do want to briefly acknowledge the elephant in the room here, which is that Victor Newman apparently just slipped out of the event to fly back to Genoa City, despite the fact that we were told on BTG that aircraft were grounded because of the storm. You do not fly planes in tornado conditions. That is just a fact. But Victor Newman apparently operates outside of meteorological reality, because there he is on Thursday's young and the restless living his best life in Genoa City, while everyone else is trapped under debris. Very on brand for Victor, honestly. If you watch Wine, you already know when things get dangerous, Victor tends to be somewhere else entirely. Now, the big emotional story on Thursday is Eva and Kat being forced to work together in the middle of the disaster, and I think this could be a genuinely pivotal moment for their relationship. These two half-sisters have been circling each other with so much tension and history and unresolved feelings, and there's nothing like a natural disaster to strip all of that away and get to the core of who people actually are to each other. When the walls are literally coming down, you find out fast whether someone is family or not. And the setup here is interesting because Tomas was not standing with Eva and Kat when things went sideways. He's been working the room all night on Bill Hamilton's very specific orders, schmoozing clients like a good little ambulance chaser at what was supposed to be a charity fundraiser. So it is entirely possible that Eva and Kat are going to have to work together to help Tomas, who may be trapped somewhere in the rubble. That would be a very effective way to force these two women into genuine cooperation, rather than just polite coexistence. And then we have Ted Richardson making his way over to his daughters, and this scene is going to be intense. Ted sees blood on Kat, and he immediately panics because he thinks she is injured. Ted is frantic. He wants to check her over. He is in full father mode, and then Kat, who is crying, tells him that it is not her blood. And Ted is standing there with Isaiah nearby, so at least we know Isaiah is safe and accounted for. But then Ted asks Kat whose blood it is, and that is the question hanging in the air. I do not think it is Eva's blood, but the show is not going to tell us that easily. It could be Tomas. It could be someone else entirely. But the point of that scene is the emotion. Ted seeing his daughter covered in someone else's blood and not knowing who is hurt or how badly, and Kat in tears in the middle of a disaster she partially spent the evening blaming on Leslie for being a witch. Which, Kat, honey, tornadoes are meteorological events, not supernatural ones, but we love you anyway. Now on the topic of casualties, I want to address this because I know people are worried about their favorite characters. Actress Daphne du Plessis, who plays Nicole, did a recent interview alongside Eric Braeden, who plays Victor Newman, and both of them confirmed that all of the named characters come through this ordeal okay. So nobody is dying in this tornado. There may be extras who did not make it, there may be some unnamed casualties in the background, but the main cast members are going to be fine physically. That said, fine physically does not mean the emotional damage is not real, and I think the psychological fallout of this disaster is going to ripple through Beyond the Gates for quite a while. The chandelier at the Fairmont Crest Ballroom comes crashing down on Thursday too, and it looks like Haley Hamilton is directly in its path. And Kyle Abbott is the one who saves her. She tells him he saved her life, and I think that is not a small thing. Kyle intervening at exactly the right moment to pull Haley out of danger creates an instant bond between them whether either of them wants it or not. Now I have to be honest here and say that if Kyle had just stepped aside and let the chandelier do its thing, then Haley could not keep quietly poisoning her husband Bill, and some very complicated problems would solve themselves. But that is not how soap operas work, and that is not who Kyle Abbott is as a character. He saves Haley, and then he kisses her. Which, okay, Kyle. The adrenaline of a near-death experience will do things to people, but this is a married woman who is actively trying to kill her husband, so maybe pump the brakes just a little. This kiss absolutely has me wondering whether Haley is going to start looking at Kyle as her next target once she is done with Bill. If she has already decided that Bill needs to go, having a replacement lined up, especially one with the Abbott name and all that comes with it, would be very on-brand for Haley. And then there is Bill and Danny in the elevator, which is the scenario I have been thinking about since the end of Wednesday's episode. They stepped into that lift right as everything was going wrong, and the BTG Spoilers confirm that these two have to rely on each other during this disaster. So the elevator presumably lurches, the power goes out, and now Bill Spencer and Danny are stuck together in a dark elevator while a tornado tears apart the building around them. Bill is telling Danny to stay calm, telling her the power is out and there is nothing to do but wait for help, and she asks him when he has ever just waited for anything. And that exchange tells you everything you need to know about where this goes emotionally. Because Bill and Danny have been in a reflective headspace around each other for a while now, talking about the past, thinking about what was, what could have been, and now they are physically trapped together in the dark with nothing to do but talk and feel things. If lines do not get crossed in that elevator, I will be genuinely surprised. I am not saying anything happens definitively, but the conditions are absolutely ripe for it. And when Haley finds out, and Haley will find out because she always finds out, that is going to accelerate her timeline on whatever she is planning for Bill considerably. Martin may also be trapped somewhere in the rubble because Smitty is calling out for him, and the Martin, if you can hear me, energy is never reassuring. If the chandelier came down near Martin, the congressman might be pinned under something. And look, there is a dark irony to surviving a natural disaster giving someone a political boost, but if Martin comes out of this as a visible survivor of something genuinely terrifying, that is not the worst thing for his re-election campaign. Tragic circumstances have a way of humanizing politicians in the public eye. Not that anyone planned for a tornado to hit a fundraiser, but still. Then on Friday, June 13th, Vanessa, Nicole, and Andre are together in the dark checking on Ted. This is right after the chandelier crash, and they are in assessment mode, trying to figure out the damage and who needs help. The women are panicking and Ted is running around putting out fires, sometimes literally and sometimes figuratively, because there are a lot of people in that building who need a doctor, and Ted is one of the few qualified people there to help. Nicole is a doctor too, so at least there is more than one medical professional on the scene. And the fact that Vanessa is with them means Joey is somewhere else, away from the group, doing his own thing, which is setting up perfectly for whatever heroic moment he is about to have. Because the Beyond the Gates spoilers say that a VIP at the fundraiser winds up owing Joey a favor after what he does during the crisis. And, depending on who that VIP is, an apology might also be on the table. Joey was not supposed to be at this event in the first place. Martin made it very clear he did not want Joey there, so for Joey to do something heroic enough that someone powerful feels they owe him is a real moment of legitimacy for this character. And it puts Joey in a very different position going forward, because owing someone a favor is currency, and Joey is going to need every bit of goodwill he can accumulate given what his sister Heather has been dragging into his life lately. More on that in a moment. There is also a spoiler about a couple taking drastic measures during the crisis that leads to some harsh consequences, and I keep coming back to Bill and Danny in that elevator when I think about this one. If something happens between them, even something that feels justified in the moment given the fear and the history and the dark and the trauma of it all, the consequences when daylight hits and the tornado is over and everyone is back to regular life are going to be significant. Bill has Haley at home, who is already planning his death. Danny has her own life and relationships. Whatever happens in that elevator does not stay in that elevator on a soap opera. It never does. Ashley and Naomi being alone in the bridal suite is another thread to watch on Friday. We saw on Wednesday that Anastasia said some genuinely horrible things to Ashley that triggered her, and now these two women are separated from the main group during a disaster. That is either going to bring them closer together or it is going to push Ashley to a very dark place emotionally at the worst possible time. There is a part of me that wonders if the tornado hitting that part of the building could drive the story in a specific direction there. But we also have the possibility that Naomi gets Ashley down to the ballroom, which would mean the grieving nurse could actually help with triage alongside Ted and Nicole. And with Shanice also being a nurse, the medical response situation at Fairmont Crest is at least somewhat covered. Anita sees something peculiar and issues a warning on Friday, and I desperately want to know what she sees because Anita's instincts are sharp, and when she sounds an alarm, people should listen. Vernon is panicking and trying to get Anita to safety, which is very Vernon and very sweet, but Anita is not the kind of woman who gets shepherded to safety while there is still something to be done. That dynamic between them is always entertaining even in the middle of a disaster. And then the crossover guest Jack Abbott, who came over from Young and the Restless for this event, is spotted with his tux jacket off, his tie undone, looking completely disheveled and possibly with a little blood on him, looking down at someone on the ground. So Jack is clearly doing some heroic heavy lifting during this disaster. Which good. Of all the YNR characters to have present during an emergency, Jack Abbott is actually one of the better choices. He has been through enough himself to not freeze up when things get bad. Meanwhile, Victor took off and saved himself, which again, very on brand. It is almost impressive how consistently Victor operates in pure self-preservation mode. Now, into the week of June 15th through the 19th, and this is where I think Beyond the Gates is going to really deliver on the emotional storytelling that this show is capable of at its best. The devastating aftermath of the tornado is going to be the centerpiece of the week. We're going to find out definitively who is injured, how seriously, and what the lasting damage looks like, physically, emotionally, and relationally. And I think the most important question is what this disaster does to the people who lived through it together. Because shared trauma is one of the most powerful bonding agents in soap opera storytelling, and BTG is sitting on a goldmine of new and deepened relationships right now. Eva and Kat, this is the one I am most invested in. If the disaster forces them to lean on each other, to actually act as sisters rather than as two women who happen to share a father, that is a turning point that cannot easily be walked back. Once you have been through something real with someone, once you have been scared together and fought for each other in a moment that mattered, the relationship changes. It does not mean all of the old wounds disappear overnight, but it means there is something new built on top of them. And I think Beyond the Gates is going to use this tornado as the catalyst for Eva and Kat's relationship to genuinely evolve rather than just simmer at the same level of complicated tension indefinitely. Haley doubling down on her plan to poison Bill is almost a certainty coming out of this week, especially if she gets wind of what happened with him and Danny in that elevator. Because Haley is calculating. She is always running the numbers. And if she senses that her time as Bill's wife might be getting shorter, either because Bill is developing feelings elsewhere or because someone is getting close to figuring out what she is doing, she is going to accelerate. And if she has also developed an interest in Kyle as her next project, she has extra motivation to wrap up the Bill situation sooner rather than later. Haley is not a character who lets the grass grow under her feet. We are also going to get more on the consequences that couple faces from their drastic measures during the disaster, and I think this storyline has real legs because it is not just about what happened. It is about what it means going forward, and whether the people involved can come to terms with what they did, and why. Consequences on Beyond the Gates tend to have a longer tail than consequences on some other soaps, and I am here for it. I am also very curious about whether Leslie comes out of all this completely unscathed. I had made a joke in the weekly BTG Spoilers video about a house falling on Leslie, Wizard of Oz style, and then Kat made almost exactly that same joke to Eva during the episode, which honestly had me feeling very seen as a recapper. If Leslie gets a little squished by the tornado, I am not going to pretend I would be heartbroken about it. The woman has been causing problems for too long, and a natural disaster taking her down a peg or two feels like poetic justice. The Genoa City visitors, Jack, Diane, Kyle, Devin, Abby, all make it out safely and head back to Young and the Restless, which wraps up the crossover cleanly. And then we should start getting more story on Heather the Impaler and specifically what she is dragging to Joey's doorstep, because that trouble has been building, and now that Joey has earned some goodwill and a favor from a VIP, the timing of Heather's chaos arriving is going to be particularly complicated for him. Joey finally gets a win and immediately has to use his goodwill as a shield against his sister's mess. That is very much a soap opera kind of luck. It is a big, emotional, consequence-heavy week ahead for Beyond the Gates, and I am genuinely excited to watch it all unfold. Make sure you are following Soap Dirt wherever you listen to podcasts, because we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all the major platforms. Hit subscribe, leave us a review if you love what we do, and we will see you right back here for the next episode.